Today we're going to be talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, and Baywatch. So stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. And I am here today with Mr. Joel Zombie Shark Cunningham.
Zombie Shark? Is that from something?
What do you mean? It's like one of my favorite parts from Pirates.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about that. Holy cow! I guess they are kind of zombie sharks. Wow. Yeah. I just saw the movie. I didn't even.
It was like watching what was that Blake Lively movie, The Shallows.
The Shallows. It's like the predecessor for The Shallows. Yeah. I don't know, the sequel to The Shallows. There. Yeah. Well, I am here with Matt. Likes to podcast in slow motion. Hey.
Yes.
That's sponsored by our other film that we're going to be talking about a little bit today.
Yes.
Baywatch.
Yep.
I barely even want to say the name, Matt.
No, it's okay. I know it's a difficult task, but somebody has to do it, and that's what we're here for.
Exactly. We are the critics for you.
Yes, and if you are tuning in for the first time today, it is The Real Review, where we give you a little bit of the harsh critic side. This is what Joel does, a little bit of the review from the harsh critic perspective, really analyzing things, breaking it down real for you, and combining that with more of the fan side, which is kind of what I do, is approach it more from an emotional standpoint. You know, was it exciting? Was it engaging? Did I care about the characters a lot? Did it make me cry? Was I weeping? You know,
it's a very relevant way to review things, and I'll tell you why later when we get to it. But one of our films that we're going to be talking about today has a very interesting news article that was just released about that exact thing, the fan versus the critic.
And we'll totally be chatting about that.
Absolutely.
But so that's kind of those two perspectives. They collide, and that's what you get as The Real Review. But first, Joel, go ahead and tell everybody how they can get connected with us.
Well, there's some great ways you can get connected to our podcast. We have our website, which is realreviewmedia.com, and you can check us out there. We've got stuff that we're posting occasionally. We put things up there, and we try to get some good big breaking news kind of stories and put those up, as well as our Facebook, which is facebook.com/realreviewmedia. We also have our Instagram, we have our Twitter. Those both can be found at Real Review Media. And of course, Matt and I love to hear from you, our listeners and fans and people that are listening to the podcast throughout the world. So definitely send us an email if you can, preferably in English if you are listening somewhere else. Other than the United States. Yeah, we don't work well with the translators.
Yeah.
Very well. But but you can email us at our email address, which is realreviewmedia@gmail.com, and we love hearing from you, as I said. So there you go, Matt.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So with that, I actually want to dive right into this because we had
diving right in,
man.
Yeah.
Get that?
I get it.
Totally get
it's
it.
Like
zombie sharks
walking the plank to the no, not even. Yeah.
Parlay. All right. We're gonna parlay right into this.
Oh, lovely.
All right, so let's start off right from the get-go. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Yes. This is directed by Joachim Ronning and Espen Sandberg.
Yep, co-direction.
Co-directors, yep. Starring primarily Johnny Depp, Javier Bardem, Jeffrey Rush, Brenton Thwaites, Kayla Scodelario, Kevin McNally, and a bunch of other awesome people.
Yes, and we did have some good cameos there in the beginning from Orlando Bloom at the end, and then spoiler-ish, kind of Keira Knightley's in it. I mean, she's listed, but
she's listed on it, so
Yeah.
Anyways, so
might just power through the names too. Just that's the key. Is if you don't know what to say, if you just power through it, then nobody knows.
Just roll with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you and I, we were not too keen on this going into it.
Yeah, I'd say I've had a very love-hate relationship with the Pirates series.
Mostly
hate, which is sad because it started off really well.
I think it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, for most people, I would say the first Pirates movie was pretty much beloved by most people.
One of my favorite Gore Verbinski films.
Yeah,
actually.
Very few people kind of watch that movie and go, "Oh, I just hated that. That just stunk." So it's a pretty well, regarded film. And then we had 2 and 3, and a lot of people that lost a ton of people.
Right.
Then they did number 4, which was kind of like, why are they doing another one, in my opinion?
Yeah.
And but there were still some diehards out there.
Yeah.
I actually posted something about it on my Facebook and had a couple of people like, shut your mouth,
Really?
Pirates. Yeah. But then the 4th one came out, and then I think by that point, everybody kind of was like, all right, yeah, Pirates has kind of jumped the shark. Hey. A little bit. And then now we have the 5th one, and potentially what's looking like another one, a 6th one after this one as well.
Yeah,
Maybe a 7th and-
most likely because of money.
Yes, because of, we won't talk about it too much, but there is a bit of an after credit, thing that happens. So
this thing too, it came in under expectations from the studio. It only made like $65 million.
Yeah, this is the lowest, from what I read, the lowest profitable summer launch kind of season in the last 19 years.
It's Memorial Day.
Right.
Since
Memorial
1999,
Day weekend,
it's been the lowest opening since.
Yeah, which is just crazy balls.
Yeah, it's craziness.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about the film.
Let's talk about the film. Yeah. So let me just start off what I liked about it. Okay.
It's a cool name.
It is. It is a cool name.
Yeah.
All right. First of all, this movie starts off really, really strong.
Yeah.
I really liked the beginning. It had me engaged. I was on board.
Yeah.
I was so on board with the first 10 to 15 minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that part.
Yes.
Okay. So anything with the emotional tie-in with, I think his name is Henry, trying to save his father from this curse.
Yeah.
I really resonated with, and they did a great job setting that up. It was kind of emotional at the very beginning. I was like, oh, okay, I'm on board with this.
Yeah. It was a bit like, really, but that's kind of a Pirates movie, like how the kid was like, I gotta throw this rock thing in the water at just such a moment, but it kind of fit, like you understood that it's Pirates. You just gotta take it for what it is.
I liked it though. It was very mysterious. It was something that I was like, what is going on? Okay, that's what he's doing. Oh, okay, I see what's happening.
Yeah.
I liked that. I liked Javier Bardem and his crew. The effects I thought were really cool. The floatiness. I thought Javier Bardem, I know we've differed on this a little bit.
Yeah.
I really liked his character as the villain.
Yeah.
More so at the beginning. I'd say the last scene that he's in, I'm a little less on board with.
Yeah.
But for the most part, anything that he was in, I found really interesting. I liked looking the way he talked with his teeth and really spitty all over. Anyway, I like that. And then the visuals are really great. Zombie sharks, I like that. Mm-hmm. That was an exciting scene. I thought it was entertaining, and probably the only scene that I enjoyed Jack Sparrow in.
Yeah.
Because the other scenes with him I didn't really care for, but I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the ending. The very ending, not the little teaser at the end of the credits, which there is one. Yeah. Which, by the way, there's been one at every movie.
Correct.
Every Pirates movie, there's been an after credits teaser.
They were kind of like the pre-Marvel, ones that were really doing that consistently.
I liked some story elements, but for the most part, that's really it.
Okay.
Not a ton there. What were some of the highlights for you?
I think I would agree with a lot of what you're saying. Visually, I think they did a good job. It didn't, cannonball me out of the water. It didn't. We're going to be doing the puns all day, folks. I thought it was visually pretty good, though. I didn't think it was bad. The soundtrack was good. I thought it was the music that kind of built in. I've always enjoyed the sounds and the music.
The music was... the music is good.
I always thought that was good. I felt like the editing was decent. I didn't think it was super awful. That's kind of something that's hard to critique without me going through and giving it a fine-tooth comb kind of look at sort of a thing. I'd have to see it again probably and look out for that. But yeah, in a lot of ways, it's kind of where it ends for me. I think I also agree the first 15 minutes to me were probably the best part. Yeah. And it started on a really big high. And it was weird because I'd been reading some of the reviews and seeing the numbers coming in and hearing about a lot of people not enjoying the film. And you told me as well, you had a chance to see it, that you just thought it was meh. And I was like, well, it's starting off really well. Why is this, and the funny thing was, and obviously we don't like to talk about spoilers too much on this, but I'm just going to say, the real moment that it kind of took a turn for the worse for me was right around the moment where they started doing the bank robbery, which was when they introduced, Johnny Depp's character. When
I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Jack Sparrow. Yeah. From that moment on, the film kind of became bland, and it became very not only predictable, but it felt like one of the difficulties and one of the challenges that I had for this film was that So in the prior films, one of the real issues, and I think we even talked about this, is that the stakes were just never really there for me after the first film, because it was constantly this exploration of like, well, what more ridiculous situation can we put this same cast of characters in, but then they're all going to come out exactly the same, completely fine, like no injuries, they're all going to survive somehow magically. Everybody else is going to die, but these significant cast of character people are just not going to have anything happen to them.
Yeah.
And so that kind of was the case. But then additionally, I found the action set pieces to be very limited, and the ones that were there were just not that interesting. They weren't that cool. I think the best action set piece throughout the entire thing was the battle between Javier Bardem's ship and the Black Pearl. The fight that they kind of had going on between those two ships was kind of like the best, with the rising stakes and kind of stuff going on. Even that one, though, kind of left me wanting a bit more. I mean, when your final action set piece in a, what's supposed to be this giant piratey kind of adventure type film is literally 2 or 3 people running, for their lives, and like everybody's running. That's like the end, is we're just going to run. And it's like your final action set piece. It's just a little boring. You know what I mean? They're literally just holding on. That's the final action set piece. And it just wasn't that. And I'm sorry if I'm ruining things for listeners. I'm not going to spoil who, survives or anything like that.
I wouldn't qualify that as a spoiler.
Yeah, but I think some of the biggest difficulties that I had with this film were in the characterizations and in the characters themselves. For whatever reason, I really did not enjoy the relationship between Henry Turner and Karina Smith.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't want to, like we said, we don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to talk about some of the reveals that happen with their characters, but weirdly, I felt like there should have been almost a reversal of the roles in which they played in this movie. I really felt like it would have been much more interesting, and I will go there because this is kind of revealed at the very beginning, but, Karina plays this kind of like scientific, she's a deep thinker. She kind of goes into books, and the entire plot, she's always talking about like how like, there's this injustice against her because everybody looks at her as this person that shouldn't be able to understand these things, that shouldn't be able to figure these things out. And it just felt really flat for me because it didn't make sense. Because in that time period, she literally would not have been allowed to learn the things that she's talking about, which I'm not saying is good, that's bad, but they never explained, well, how did you learn? Yeah. How did you figure these things out? Because you wouldn't be allowed to do that. And then additionally, it felt like with Henry Turner's character, I just felt like, unfortunately, Brenton was just not a good actor in this. I felt really, every time he was like talking or on screen, he just felt really bland to me.
Oh, really?
I felt connected to his story a lot more than with Karina. Like, it made sense to me that he's trying to do this thing to like save his father. I was connected to that. But he himself was just very kind of bland and boring to me. And that's kind of the feel that I got from a lot of the different elements. It wasn't fun. Like, the first film was like kind of ridiculous and fun and crazy, and the funnest parts about this film was when they were regurgitating aspects that we had seen in other films. There was nothing new about this one that really added any elements of interest or fun to me. And so but what I was saying is with Henry and Karina is I really felt like if she had come in as the pirate and he had come in, because Henry Turner, he's the child of Elizabeth Swann, and if realistically, I would have felt like she probably would have put her son through education. She came from a good upbringing. She came from a good family. She probably would have been the kind of person to send him into all these educational systems. It would have just made a lot more sense and been a lot more interesting to me if he'd been like the educated one and he's kind of like being pulled into this piratey world to try and save his father, whereas Karina's the pirate and she's pulling him in, because we've seen the opposite happen in a prior film, which is Will Turner's pulling Elizabeth Swann sort of into this world.
Right.
If Karina had been the one to pull Henry into it, and then there could have been like a reversal of roles kind of played out throughout the course of that, would have been a lot of fun. That's just a one minor like point. There's a bunch of other ones. I want to hear your kind of negatives too, though. I've been talking for a while.
I thought Henry was okay.
Okay.
I thought he was okay.
Yeah. I did.
Yeah, I know, but
obviously
okay, so here's my problem with this, and this they didn't really fix it, and this is I think what the problem with 2, 3, and 4 were. I remember them being very distinct. In the first movie, Jack Sparrow was he was a little goofy, a little off,
right,
but it was like kind of subdued, almost in a semi-realistic way, as you could be in a world where ghost pirates exist, but in 2, 3, and 4, and this film, I think he's just a cartoon character.
Yeah.
He is just way over the top, way more than he's ever been. I get that he's always in this like semi-perma drunk state.
Yeah.
But it was just way too much, and he was obnoxious, and I couldn't stand him. And
Wow.
I was like, it was every scene that Jack Sparrow was in. I was just kind of either rolling my eyes or just like,
wow,
what?
You really didn't like him in this one.
No, I didn't.
I didn't have that big a problem with him. I thought he was a bit bland in this one.
Let me say, Johnny Depp's a fantastic actor. I'm not saying he's a bad actor. I just think it was probably just the material that he was given to work off of.
Yeah. I really think a lot of it, in my opinion, I don't know, I haven't looked into these directors too much to know too much about their history, but it really felt like a lot of it was an issue of who was doing the directing.
Right.
Because it felt like all the characters were just kind of a shade of who they could be or who they should be. I mean, even Geoffrey Rush's character was interesting in this film, but he lacked that kind of visceral intensity that we had in prior films, where it was kind of like he was almost like this guy that had this boiling rage that was just any second from now,
because he wanted an apple.
Right, yeah. And in this film, it just kind of felt like he was just along for the ride. He was just kind of like things were happening. And we did get some emotional moments, but there was no emotional core to this movie. And I think a big part of that to me as well was that it felt like there was way too much that they were attempting to kind of pull into the story to make going on. I think one of the things that made the first film so interesting and impactful was that it was a very much a character-driven story.
Right.
You had really interesting characters. They were engaging in an adventure, but only had like a couple different plot lines. You know, you basically had Barbossa's story of him trying to like remove the curse. You had Johnny Depp's character, Jack Sparrow, trying to get the Black Pearl and escape. And then you had Will Turner trying to rescue Elizabeth Swann. And that was it. This one, everybody's got their own story. Everybody's got their own direction they're going in. And you don't know. I didn't even know who the main character was. Yeah. Like in the first film, I knew very clearly, okay, well, the main character, this is Will Turner. Yeah. But then you've got some added interest with the secondary characters. And then every other film since then has always been everybody's the main character. Yeah. And that didn't even change with this one. But then with this one, there was no emotional like pull that I was moving towards, because everybody had their own little emotional story that they were trying to tell. I
don't like all of the characters that they keep. Like, I appreciate them maybe in the second one a little bit, but all his like Black Pearl, like, you know, partners and like shipmates. Yeah. Like, I'm like, they just serve no purpose. I felt like, them and a lot of the people they try and bring in. Okay, let me know what you think about this, because I felt like none of the humor landed.
There was the funny thing was, well, not the funny thing, the non-funny thing. I guess every single one that they showed in the previews was funny, but I'd already seen them, and so it was one of those situations where the things that they were joking about in the previews were like the funniest part. Everything else was not. Yeah, I don't think any of the humor really landed on me except for that. I mean, even. Yeah, there was like maybe one or two like kind of giggler type moments. I think like when you first see Johnny Depp and the girl pops up and it turns out that's the one guy's wife, like that was kind of like, oh, that's kind of funny. But I mean, other than that, it wasn't. Yeah, there was nothing uproariously hilarious that I was laughing at the entire
giggled
time.
a little.
I think when he said he wanted to eat the monkey, I thought that was kind of funny.
Right. No,
like, why would he want to eat a monkey?
There's a guillotine scene that I kind of was like, that's interesting. But
that was so outlandish to me, though.
I didn't laugh out. So here's the thing: I didn't laugh out loud the whole movie. Like I kind of like just I was like, like at the most like that.
I didn't know what I was supposed to feel at that moment. I didn't know if I was supposed to feel how ridiculous this is, and it just there was constantly something happening to like tonally shift me into a different direction. Like, is it this? Is it that? Is it? So I just didn't really land in that regard, I think, for me. And I will say this, and this is, I said visually it was a very good film. I just mean mostly cinematography wise, special effects wise, it was okay. Yeah. I never felt like it blew me out of the water for different scenes. The worst moment, and I will say this was like horrible to me, was actually. It was funny because in the trailer and everything, it looked really good, and I actually complimented on this in a prior episode we talked about. But the young Jack Sparrow, the first shot of him was great, and it looked really good. But then they did this close-up shot of him, and he looked a little funky, and I was like, okay, well that's not that great. And then they did a wide shot of him again. I was like, okay, he's back to looking good again. And then they did a really close-up shot of him again, and I was like, he just looks weird. He looked disturbing, almost weird. It kind of so took me out of the film.
That scene in particular was, with the visual effects aside, I felt like that was my favorite Jack Sparrow scene. Yeah. That was really cool. You got to see like him be awesome.
He was really awesome in that scene. I liked what happened with the progression of that scene. I didn't need the moment of him getting the items as like tribute, I thought that was really hackney and kind of cheesy, and it almost took away some of the mystery and the coolness behind him, because he always just seemed like this character that's just kind of floated and just kind of been in his own world and kind of done his own thing. But then the moment that you put that basically all the items that he has on him came from that one moment of tribute, like whenever ago, then he seems like this really old, antiquated, out of touch guy that like can't get grips with what reality is. And that maybe that's what they were going for, but it actually just made me feel bad about him. I'm like, dude, you're like so out of touch. It's like, get into the game plan that there's other things to do besides like think of your tribute that you had 15 years ago.
I didn't mind that as much. But yeah, no, I mean, I say there's a lot of things that really bugged me about this movie, and I felt like there's potential for this movie to do something completely different, especially the way that it started out. I was like really into it.
Yeah.
But it just kind of got worse as it went on. I did really enjoy the villains. I liked all that. I liked a lot some of the action scenes that they did.
Here's what I was really connected with. I was really connected with resolving the story of Elizabeth and Will.
Yeah.
And finding out kind of how that resolves itself. Because I felt like they were always, that was a very unfortunate ending for them. I was like, I don't understand it. I don't like it. And so I was very much on board for getting a resolution to that story. I felt like that should have been the main driving factor to the story.
Right.
But so many other plot lines with Barbosa, with Javier Bardem's character, with Sparrow, with Karina's story, all of that took such a big seat in this film that I ended up not being able to connect with that as the main driving force.
Yeah, and here's my last thought on that. I totally agree. I think that is the most, that should have been the emotional core, and that's the strongest thing I think that is in this franchise in general. And the one thing that they brought back that bugs me is Johnny Depp's character in the second and third one, like him and Elizabeth like have this thing. I thought that was such a weird thing.
It never made sense.
And they alluded to it a couple times in this one. And I was like, what? You know,
I was totally fine with him being interested in her.
But not her back.
Right, but not her back.
Right.
And it never made sense to me why she suddenly made that shift about like halfway through the second film where she started to look at Jack Sparrow as an actual romantic interest or an actual romantic partner.
It was just weird.
It really didn't make any sense to me. It really felt manipulative. I was like, again, he's a pirate. He's a guy that's kind of, and I think it would have been cool to kind of set her up as like a reason for why he makes changes in his life, because he recognizes that she's this amazing girl, but he could never achieve that because of what he's done and because of who he is. But don't actually put them on like the same footing. You know what I mean? Because then that downgrades the whole story of Will and her. And it just, there could have been some good backstabbing moments of maybe Jack Sparrow's like turning on Will because he wants to get Elizabeth, but she doesn't like him. And I don't know. So,
no. So I'm thinking, okay, so actually I'm really curious. What do you want to rate this thing?
I'm going to give it a pretty low ranking. I'm actually going to put this down at a 68%. So,
really? 68%.
Yeah. Which is actually lower than Alien Covenant.
I thought you were going to go lower.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, no.
I'm actually going to go lower than you.
Oh, wow. All right. That's like a first in podcast
I know. I'm going to put it at 62.
Okay. Yeah. I think the difference for us probably is the Jack Sparrow element, because I didn't like him. I felt like he was in a way a shade of his former glory, but it felt like that was maybe in a way the story they were trying to tell, because his whole crew kind of betrays him and, yada, yada. He's trying to like get back in their good graces. And so it felt like maybe that was an element of the story. And I felt like a lot of it, I don't blame on him. I blame more on the directing.
Right.
Because everybody in the entire story felt a little flat to me.
I felt like,
even the introduction of, you have these English, which the whole like what, Javier Bardem, like Salazar was like going after, he immediately, like, his thing is, well, the pirates have destroyed the oceans, and so I went and attacked all of them to stop this, and then immediately, because he becomes like this ghost creature, he like betrays that. And then they show him later on just destroying all the Englishmen that are trying to like stop the pirates, which made no sense to me.
Well, that was a completely like random like plot. The whole them chasing them anyway. They didn't even need to be in the movie.
It didn't need to be in the movie. And that's again what I'm saying. Like there was all these plot lines that kind of like, he could have been the force that was the constant like trying to catch them force, instead of adding the Englishmen, because we end up having characters that literally get killed off within like. No, like there was no reason for them to be there, and they get killed off, and you're like, I don't even care. Why were you even here? What was your business?
There's a line in the movie, and this is my last thought.
Yeah.
There's a line in the movie. Henry Turner is looking at Jack Sparrow from a distance, and you can kind of like see this look on his face, and then he like meets him later, and he goes, "You're Jack Sparrow?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be like this legend," and like he's totally disappointed. That's how I felt.
Right. And I get that. I think, like I said, to me, it felt like maybe they were trying to include that in the script. And I think maybe they did that too much, almost to the point where it was too effective.
Right. Yeah.
But I think
know.
part of that was because of the directing. So, but yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that wraps up our review of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Definitely curious to hear what you guys' thoughts are on that, so let us know. But we do have one more film that I know that Joel is really excited to talk about. And that movie is Baywatch. So why don't you break it down for us, Joel?
So this is funny because we talked about this on a prior review. We talked about kind of me giving a review of a review that I had done, and so now is my chance to provide like a real review for it. And since we spent so much time already talking about this, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time, maybe like 5-10 minutes here, just kind of beating it up a little bit and talking about it a little bit. And this is the one that I also mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, and when I mentioned that there was sort of this attack that's coming against sort of the critic versus fan perspective, or this idea of it being a good or bad thing. And it's funny that Slate actually released this article. The title of the article is "Hollywood Wishes Critics Would Stop Telling People That Bad Lazy Movies Are Bad, Lazy," which is funny to me because this is a movie that just screams out bad, lazy, ridiculous. And it really is playing itself out in the Rotten Tomatoes score. You've got a 19% tomato meter for the critics, and then the audience score is at 70%. And I think this is one of those movies that maybe if you approach it in a certain mindset and you really have no... I'd say I don't want to attack people for enjoying this film, but... If you have a sense of like, this is what it takes to make good films, and this is what it takes to make a film that is of quality and has good scripting and good plot development and good acting and good cinematography and good editing and good music and special effects and everything, there are redeeming elements to this film. And you could even maybe make the case and make the argument that as a fan, this film doesn't take itself seriously. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek of this type of film. It's an R-rated comedy, so it's going to have ridiculous, grotesque, groin shots and all that kind of really toilet humor, cursing and stupid stuff
lowest
going on,
vomiting,
drug use, things like that. It's lowest common denominator type humor.
Yeah.
And so if you're in for that kind of ride, then you could probably expect that and enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
But as somebody that goes into a film to look at it on a critical level and tries to understand it and say like, okay, well, this is probably what they did to make that happen, you kind of have to separate those two and say like, as a critic, this is kind of offensive in a way of what the film is doing. Because I'll say this as well. I love satire. I love like irony and tongue-in-cheek humor, and even the very beginning moments of this film with like the opening credits, it kind of reaches that level where it's like it's so ridiculous that it has to be in a way ironic and has to be in a way like satire for that type of film. But then immediately after that, it like betrays it and goes the complete direction of the complete obvious humor, the complete obvious joke, the complete obvious like stupid, groin, like dead man's, groin on camera for like a minute while they're messing with it. It's like, exactly what they're trying to do, and they're not trying to go satire. They're not trying to go. So if it had gone in that direction, I would have given maybe a higher ranking or something.
Yeah.
And there is some good element. I think Dwayne Johnson is a great actor. And in this film, he is kind of the redeeming element of this film in my mind. Zac Efron's not bad. He's not a horrible actor in this film. But the whole plot really just kind of pulls itself out of any realm of what I would consider to be intelligent quality and story design, And I would just say that those of you that are out there that maybe enjoyed this film, that's totally fine. I'm not going to attack it. But if you just think of what this kind of film encourages, it really does encourage like, well, let's go to the lowest common denominator and let's push for the lowest common denominator. So I should back off a bit because I feel like I'm attacking people.
What I will say is funny is in the article that you brought up at the beginning, you had mentioned to me earlier that one of the complaints about, the critics on Rotten Tomatoes is how they're hurting the business or they're hurting the movie or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And one of their excuses was, we're just trying to make movies for general audiences. And what that says to me is we don't care about making a good film.
Yeah.
We want to make something that's applicable to everybody. It doesn't have to be good. The story can be a little bit lazy. It can be, lackadaisical in some efforts. So
right. Well, it's like they're saying we're trying to make, I don't know, what would you call it? Like a Hostess, like tasty cake, like dessert that appeals to everybody versus trying to make some like super high-end, well-orchestrated, fashioned, quality ingredient like cake. You know what I mean? That's like really put together. And there's a time where you want a tasty cake. You know what I mean? There's like a time where you want to go and you just want to have something that's like, that's probably really bad for you, chock full of artificial ingredients.
Really bad.
You know what I mean? And it's just not well put together. And then there's another time though that as a critic, like you're required to say like, no, let's not say that tasty cake is the best that we can be. Let's strive for like quality ingredients. Let's strive for, the best that we can make cakes out to be. Yeah. And I'm trying to use this as a metaphor. So I'm trying not to offend anybody that actually enjoyed this film. But I think, in going into the film and talking about the actual elements of the film, there really isn't anything for me to want to go into really talk about as far as breaking down on a story element. I think the film was ridiculous. It really had the build up for the different elements. I think the best part about this film in my mindset was the relationship that you had between Zac Efron and Dwayne Johnson, which was kind of this competitive thing. But then from there, it really doesn't even make sense for why they're doing the things that they're doing in the film, because as lifeguards, they are not allowed to be running around like shooting people and blowing things up and doing the things that they're doing. And the humor is super lowbrow. There's numerous like one in particular groin shot. There's probably like 5 or 6 different jokes about groins, and it's funny because I read another article which talked about the male gaze versus the female gaze, and they were talking about how this film is so much so from the male gaze, and then it's always like but there's no nudity except for male nudity. So you can't even, and not that I'm saying I would want this, but you can't even say that it's realistic to what Baywatch was kind of about, which was like obviously the slow motion.
But I think what they did, I think I heard something about an interview how they were trying to reverse it. Right.
They tried to make it in a way like, well, we're going to objectify the men in a way. And I don't think it's right to objectify either groups. Like you shouldn't objectify men, you shouldn't objectify women, but even if you're going to objectify anybody, just make it like equal. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not asking for that. It sounds stupid me saying like they should have had more female nudity or something. Like,
how about we just don't objectify anybody?
Yeah, like don't objectify anybody. Like, let's make a film that has really good quality. Like they can have lowbrow humor, but not to the point where we're literally just like, well, let's have a guy get his junk stuck in a slatted chair and he's just yanking on it for like comedic effect. Like that's the first 5 minutes of the film. You know what I mean? So it doesn't even work on it. I don't think I laughed more than like 2 or 3 times throughout the course of this entire movie.
Jeez.
So I don't really have too much more to say. I know that I did a very probably undetailed review of this film, but I think my purpose in saying that is like this is going to be the kind of film that like if you really enjoy lowbrow, silly, tasty cake type kind of humor with like a lot of different like crotch shots and male nudity and things like that, like this is your kind of film. But if you're not into that, if that's not your thing, if you don't like that type of thing, then don't see this movie. You're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to like it. So
I won't be seeing
I'm drawing a hard line, in the sand, in the Baywatch sand.
Hey, good call with the puns today.
I'm going to give my rating for it though. I'm going to put this one at a 41. 41%, yeah.
I haven't seen it, and based off your review, I'm going to give it a 12%.
There you go. 12%
All right.
review from Matt.
But so that's our review of Baywatch. So let us know if you saw it. If you did like it, good for you. All film is subjective, so let us know what and if and what
again,
you enjoyed about it.
Hopefully I didn't. My goal isn't to offend anybody.
Right.
Their tastes are their own. I'm just saying like, hey, let's as people, can't we push cinema more toward like, good stuff? No,
I totally get that. Get that. So, let us know what you thought about that. Either both that or Pirates of the Caribbean, like I was saying earlier. And again, remember to reach out to us, find out what we have going on. We have a lot of stuff happening on our website, realreviewmedia.com. Also, realreviewmedia@gmail.com. That's how you can email us, get a hold of us, ask us questions. If there's some movies that are relatively new that maybe we didn't get a chance to review, you want us to maybe check it out, and just let us know there. You can also connect with us in the social media universe at twitter.com, instagram.com/realreviewmedia, or at Real Review Media. You can find us there, and then same with Facebook as well, at Real Review Media. Find us there, and other than that, that's it. What else you got, Joel?
I am so good, Matt. I'm good. I'm done. I'm good. I'm fried. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, it's been real.
It's been real.